Hey, Hank, I see you. I'm going to pull you up just right after the intro. Okay. Second. Got a little soul speak on the ascension that we all share. This unveiling, this apocalypse. You know, all this discussion of what is reality, conspiracy, heresy, truth that's stranger than fiction. Doesn't get any better than this. It's not just time to bring on the apocalypse, it's time to start riding it. It's not going to hurt us. Because one thing's for sure, in our conscious mind and even in our subconscious, if that's what you want to call it, we have always survived. And the reason for that is because we never die. So when it comes to ascension, what else is there to talk about? This ascension, unveiling, is not complicated. It's just a microcosm of the state of our being from any point, from this present moment to any point in our past. And in regard to the past, now we can look back to see, to awaken without the element of linear time. Yeah. Because the wisdom still comes. Because the universe is never late. That means we can take from our past the powerful wisdom of the eternal moments, seen when we unveil the hurts and the blame given and received. You know, we've reached a point where forgiveness will cease to exist. Because perfection did not create forgiveness, but as a path to a higher perfection, a new reflection of itself, of ourselves. Yeah, it's true. It's just not necessary forgiveness, and neither is earth love. So we can stop chasing both right now and all the false securities and failed searches that go with the lofty goals of a moral world. Both the things that they put beyond our reach and the reasons they gave us for not being able to reach them. It's time to re-enter the fold of the immortal, the fold of the I Am soul. How's it going, everybody? We're going to pull Hank up now. Get him on here. Let's see. Hey, Hank, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. You are unmuted by host. Okay. Ah, nice.
Here,
Yeah,
let
I
me,
was thinking I'm pressing some buttons because.
No, you're good.
Great.
Thank you for coming on such short notice.
Yeah, thank you.
Let me tell everybody that, you know, for going on 4 weeks now, we've been having issues with the people watching the show getting knocked off. And so I put up the Zoom link. If you want to go into the Zoom link and watch the show uninterrupted, then you can just hit the Zoom link. It'll hold up to 100 people. Thank you for your continued love and support. Contributions allow us to keep doing this by the seat of our pants every day. And if these shows resonate, please share so we can stay above the algorithms of Facebook. And for that, I thank you all. Hank, what's been going on? What's happening over there in Eastern Europe? How's the transition going for you personally?
Yeah, it's going very well. It's quite a ride, of course, and every day something new. But I'm feeling good, and I'm coping with things. See, yeah,
Coping. That's a word
yeah,
I haven't used when people describe their experience in the ascension.
yeah, yeah.
What does that look like? How does that feel? Coping.
Yeah, that's what they talk about, the coping mechanism, and that is not good because then you are avoiding the reality in some cases, when you cope with things. But that's not what I'm doing. I mean more the integration of the awakening into the world, the
Oh yeah,
manifestation
yeah.
of the
I got that.
yeah.
So you're saying coping with the integration, coping with the energies and the expansion and all that, right?
Yes,
So,
exactly.
so what does that look like? What does that feel like? What is it like to cope? How do you cope with
Well, it's
integrating all this?
I'm of course I'm aware of myself and how I move in the environment, around people, around what I'm doing, and I notice that when I stick to the truth, my inner truth that expresses itself through me, and when I don't stand it in the way, then everything starts to flow. But of course, the world is not always prepared for that, to hear the truth, or a truth, or a subjective truth as I experience it. But I just allow it to go on, and yeah, things automatically lead themselves to the point of where I have the people around me that accept me for who I am, and I accept them for who they are. And in the honesty between us, there is a lot of trust and a lot of space for creativity and expansion. So, and yeah, of course, I show my the parts that I wouldn't show when I was in my conditioned role for the society. But now I'm expressing it, and people recognize it, and yeah, they say, yeah, right, that's also what I feel and never said.
So it sounds like that you're holding yourself at a higher level of self-value, and that the people that you're associating with are basically on the same wavelength.
Yes, of course, that's a big desire, because there's always different wavelengths. But I think the art is to combine the wavelengths and the talents and the desires and the inner wishes of the spirit of the people together, and as a whole create things and get things rolling.
Yeah.
Because some people are more practical, some people are more creative, and together they form a whole base. And I think that's nice, because in the things that I can't do, I have to stay humble and ask for help.
Thank God for Annette.
Yeah, exactly. And
Uh,
yeah, and that's very difficult. But I have my limitations, of course, as a human, and it's the way to cooperate is yeah, it's so difficult when you say something and someone interprets it in the wrong way, or in the way you don't want to express it, and that's the whole but then slowly things start to fit in together, and slowly there's a sort of a machine starting to form, with a soul in it, of course, that is rolling in the right direction. And the right direction is not a certain goal in the future, but more in the here and now, where soul can manifest itself and connect and unite, and yeah, live as we are capable to live.
It seems like it's putting some new light on relationships, of all types of relationships, all types of interaction. Like you were talking about, you're aligning with people that are aligned with you.
Yeah.
And sometimes what hurts the heart is necessary for the soul. We have to walk away, and that type of thing, in the best terms that we can. Are you experiencing any of that?
Yes, of course. And it's not that that I become more clear, and sometimes things don't work with the people that have other goals, but the way I express it, I notice very fast if they are moving in another direction. So there is no manipulation necessary, and there's only the honesty. But people have a hard time sometimes disappointing someone. I recognize that for myself, and before you know it, you're in a whole kind of talking alongside each other, and that then it doesn't work. So it's better to be clear and open, and to speak. But of course, people don't know always what they want and what they are looking for.
Yeah.
And that's why I can help them, of course, by reconnecting them with the inner source, and what they really are, and what
this is what you do as a practitioner and as an author too.
Yeah, as an author and as a practitioner, and I do a lot of shadow work.
Yeah.
And that is really going. Sometimes I say things to people that seem rather shocking, but and then I see myself saying it, but they recognize it as their weak spot where they are blind from. So they have a certain pattern, and I push on some things in a dialogue, of course.
Yeah.
And it's always the start of the shadow work, and the stopping point, and it always ends in respect. But it goes really hard sometimes, and it's really necessary to open people up this way sometimes, because they are so stuck in their inner shell, and they are so afraid to get out of it because they've been hurt, because they are in a certain pattern, caught up, and I see the ego always invents new ways to stay in that same pattern.
Yeah.
So they think they are changing, but they are just using another system. The ego invents another way to avoid the confrontation with themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can give an example.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, today, talking about relations, Annette has a tendency to look for drama. So when everything is okay, she finds something that she can worry about. So sometimes I was irritated by that, and I was thinking, how can she not be thankful for what everything that is? How can she always find something to worry about? Now, the cause of the worrying is that she uses that to run away from her inner self, where are some blockages and inner wounds that are not healed, that she doesn't want to get in touch with, because it hurts too much, because there's fear around that. So, and now, because in a relationship it's extra difficult. I can do it with I don't call them patients or something, but
clients.
Yeah. And with the relationships, I always get a little triggered. So I get irritated because I see the same pattern repeating itself. But once the notice is there that she's looking for drama to cover a bigger pain up, then there is room for compassion, and then we can talk about it. And of course, it's a very sensitive subject, but this is
you're brave to be talking about it.
yeah, of course, because when I talk about it, I get sort of attacked. And this is something that is so crazy, that's what I said lately against someone. It's almost like a sort of exorcism. when you are shadow working, because the ego is so inventive that it finds way to see the one that is caring and helping as the bad guy.
Yeah.
Or so
Yeah.
that's really crazy. And of course I know all the tricks, maybe not all, of the ego. So yeah, it's very difficult work sometimes. Difficult if you're specialized in it, and if you allow your inner self to express itself, then it goes sort of automatically. But you have to stay very clear to the source, and to yeah.
So, I mean, I think, and somebody just made a great comment.
Yeah.
I got a couple of follow-ups on this, but let's start with this. Mary Lynn Young Gatto, thank you for your comment. She says, oh my, he is talking about me exactly. I have so much, and I worry all the time. I think this is a loop that we all have been subjected to, you know.
Yeah.
So everyone, everyone, because we're not conscious until we become conscious of something and become aware of a loop, right?
Yeah.
So my first question is, how do you recognize, how do you navigate the ego chatter or ego ideas or ego presence and stay close to yourself, like you were talking about in your example?
Yeah, I when I do it with people, I keep pushing on the loop that they are in, and sometimes they make a shift, and it's always their mind. That's what I noticed, that invents a new way.
Yeah.
So they cannot open up to the not knowing, to the new experience of the. They are aware of it, and that is already a big step of their pattern of fear of. Trying to resist, they are looking for love, but when it approaches them, they resist to it because they are afraid of it and they think they don't deserve it. They find all kind of excuses to avoid it, so they keep complaining about it and keep complaining about the hurt in the past and keep repeating the loop.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's totally normal because that keeps them out of the moment, and the mind is always never in the moment, so they keep on thinking and repeating and asking questions and wanting answers, and they want to resolve it with the mind.
Mhm.
So I help them to distrust the mind or observe the mind and take a step back from the mind. But that's very difficult because they identify themselves with the mind.
Yeah.
But when that happens, then there is room for to contact on a more energetical base, and
Yeah.
from there on we can start to break open the pattern.
Yeah. And
So,
to me, to me, and I could be wrong. I'm just putting together or expressing what, you know, what comes my way, what accumulates in my field with what I do, right? You know, with sitting in this chair. But if I think of Jason Estes and I think of Franco Di Nicola and Amanda Lawrence and a few other people who are all saying the same thing, but it looks different metaphorically. They're all saying the same thing, which is that we're moving into a space where that ego is no longer what it was, but there are these loops playing. Okay. And I think for me anyway, over the last 2 or 3 days, I see there is a difference. There's a difference between the ego and these loops. These loops are not being supported because they can be redirected and commanded. There was somebody on the show 2 or 3 weeks ago, it was a lady, and I can't remember who it was. And she explained it in very simple terms. And she said, that voice will start telling me this or start telling me that, or you're not this or you're not that.
yeah,
And she recognizes the loop of the narrative. And she says, no, that will not go anymore. So I'm saying no to that. And internalizing it. And I kind of experienced that last night in a different way than I ever had, which was, you know, Morgan and I knew we had work to do. We laid down, we put our hands together as we always do. And we just immediately things started happening. Now, as it was happening, and I don't remember a lot of the details or the intel you know, of what I went through, and this really went all night long. There was many fascinating things happening. I kept my eyes open the whole time, but it wasn't just the visuals. It was the information coming in and looking at her and seeing certain things visually, seeing her aura, seeing other things happen, things that were happening to me. And over again, that voice, I'm going to call it a loop or the ego, whether they're separate or the same, I don't know, but it would come in and say, you didn't just see her do that. You just didn't see her aura. You just didn't see this on the wall in your room or on the ceiling in your room. You just didn't receive this information. Or if you did, it's your imagination. And I just kept saying, no, that's not real. That's a loop. That's the ego, the ego mind, the ego voice, or whatever. I just said no to the energy. And each time I said no to the energy, more things expanded. Okay, more things were given to me. And it was a very profound interdimensional experience, fusing the physical and the non-physical. So I don't know, to me, that we can consciously command you know, anything and everything about us is a reality that seems so far-fetched, but I think more and more people are doing that. And I think at the essence, that's the essence of conscious living, is what happens right here. And whether we fall prey to it or whether we take command.
Yes, of course. But what sometimes happens is when people say no, they take the opposite opposition of the thing they don't like, and they're going to start in the way that they desire, but it's just the other side of the coin of the ego. So they just take on another pattern,
Yeah,
even though it is works more. So it's difficult when it comes from the mind. Then you have to already have a state of consciousness that is aware of when it is the ego and when it is not the ego. And like you are saying it, when you're stopping it, so you're setting yourself in the moment to observe it, and you don't let it get control over you. You don't get it direct you. But at the same time, you're not sort of fighting it. So because then you get the interaction with the ego, and that is still in the field of duality. And that is where we have to deal with, but on a level from the transcending of the duality, because the soul rises above that and sees that happening. So it's the inner voice of the soul, and it speaks more in silent words than in commands. But there is the power, and it's a very soft power, and it cannot be grabbed by the ego. And the ego, I experienced ego death at one point, but it's not the ego already was dead, because it was a trained persona, a trained role that I made. So the ego is still there, and it can work for me. It can serve me. It can serve the whole. And I can see it do its things in the way the Henk figure does his things. But the truth is always there, watching it. And that is from a total different energy. The ego works more from fear and separation and anxiety, that kind of energy. And the other part is the union, the connectedness with everything and everyone, and there is not even another one. So, but the balance is in between that, and it's the order or the chaos, and the chaos is the field of the infinite possibilities, and that is where the soul is coming in. And when we allow ourselves to open up for this field of chaos, of not knowing, of then it expresses itself, and it forms a sort of harmony around us that is much more beautiful than the ego that tries to control us and tries to tell us things are not true, and tries to deny everything or be negative about certain things. It's nice to watch it, and it's nice to hear it chatter and do its things, but more as a sort of a trickster that is trying to mess things up and keep us in the pattern that we were in. But that is the pattern that saved us at one time, maybe in our youth because of a traumatic experience. And we have such a hard time to let that go, because then we think we experience the same pain that we have experienced a long time ago. That's why your ego sort of says maybe, well, you don't see what you're seeing in Morgan, don't believe it. It's just saying, yeah, that same thing.
I think there's something to be said, or at least considered, by in this realm anyway, by aligning with conscious verbalization, even if it's just to yourself or to the universe or in your mind, however you want to put it, but consciously stating something, consciously saying, no, that loop is not going to play. Morgan made a comment, and this is something that, I think is becoming, people are becoming more and more aware of. It's not an easy pill to swallow, but over the last 2 or 3 days, so I went through a little bit of a shift in an expanded awareness, which always comes with a little pain. And I was led to, I spent the night on the couch. I didn't really sleep much that night, and I was led to Jordan Peterson. I think a lot of people know him. He's a scholar, very well read.
I've seen him.
And he was talking about Carl Jung, right?
Oh yes, Carl Jung.
He was talking about shadow, and he was talking about how it's not enough to say, "Oh, I see that shadow or that extreme polarity, and I own it." That you actually take it deeper into the recesses of your mind, of your soul, I guess, that chaos that you're talking about, that field, and you say, I could be that extreme polarity that I don't identify as Todd. Okay, I could be that rapist, I could be that murderer, I could be that victimizer, and you actually feel it in your bones. And so to her comment, she was just saying that you can't clear a loop if you don't clear the polarity as well, because it's still active in your field.
Yes.
Right. You know what I mean? So if you, you know what I'm talking about.
But the polarities are also connecting at the middle point, and we are capable of doing all the things that, because the whole history of humanity is inside us. So we are the rapist, we are the murderer, we are the all those things. It depends on the situation, how we have been grown up, and in knowing that, in experience all those dark elements inside of us, then we understand evil and understand how things can go out of hand. Because most of the people that do evil things feel legitimized to do them because they have an excuse. And only when you are aware of the things, how this mechanism works, then we can transcend that evil doing and choose consciously not to do it. Because we recognize it. And at the same moment, when we are aware of the things we are capable of, we are taking control of them. And those archetypes cannot take control over us, like anger, or that's how the Greek gods were expressing their emotions. They gave them all kind of their emotions, all kind of names from gods. So when we can recognize all those inner gods inside ourselves, then we can control them, and then we can use them in our advantage. And when we use them in our advantage, is also in the advantage of the whole, because we know then we are all connected and all the same, and it's all a matter of love. But
they're like archetypes, those Greek gods, right?
Yes, but they are also a reality in us.
Of course.
People don't want to see that. They want to believe that they are good, but it's what is good is not always good, because it's culturally allowed. And when we are not aware of what we can do when things are shifting, or when the collective is directing us in a certain way, then before we know it, we start to do the most crazy things, and to other people, because we think then we are doing the good thing.
Yeah.
And when we are aware of that, we are capable of that, then we can stop that, and then we can be aware of that. And then at the same time, we get compassion for the people that do things like that,
Yeah.
because they are unaware, and unaware people are doing behavior that is not mature. So it's just also their way and their journey to find the unity they are looking for.
Yeah.
And yeah, it goes with a lot of trouble and with a lot of pain. And like you said in the intro, we are not really dying. So the soul is constantly journeying and experiencing and growing. And it goes the hardest, the best way with the faults we make. Like you said, the growing experience of your awakening, it caused some pain, because of course it's expansion, and growth is coming with some pain, because you're stepping out of your old skin and taking on a new level of awareness.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you were smaller than you thought you were because of your beliefs
Yeah.
that have nothing to do with reality, maybe the reality of that moment in that time, but yeah.
Aaron Lee, thank you for the comment. Aaron Lee said, she said we could all be where anyone else is.
Yes,
We
exactly.
could all be. And you know, that's a really profound, simple statement, but that pretty much sums it up there. Don't you think?
Yeah,
Um,
of course.
have
Is
you?
he family of Morgan? He's also a Lee.
Oh no, this is Lee, Leigh.
Okay.
Yeah, Leigh.
Yeah. But we are all family, of course, on a
That's
deeper
right.
level.
Yeah.
Because
Have you
and
had? Go ahead. Go ahead.
well, yeah, I was thinking at certain points there is on a deeper level no time. So in that timeless experience, we have all the time to experience the lives we are living ourselves, former lives, future lives, but also the life of the people we are connected with. So maybe perhaps we already have sit in the opposite direction. I lead your life, you lead my life, and
Yeah.
it's just we see it from all kind of perspectives.
Yeah.
And that is
Another thing that I find interesting is that for a long time people talked about, and they still do, protect yourself from this energy or that devil or that demon or whatever. Okay. And there may have been, I think there's enough history in our own lives that there was either by virtue of the perception that we had of our bigness or smallness, okay, power or powerlessness, or by a reality that was, injected into this realm, into this experience where there was in our past energies that could harm us. We know the rules now. We know that we have to give consent. We know that that's how the universe works. But we also know that everything is us. So I see something interesting. I still see people talking about protect yourself, but I see fewer people. I see more people talking about, in one way or another, that they are their own protection. That if they stay focused on their energy field and stay open to the shadows, or keep their eye on the shadows, that they continue to expand and strengthen their energy field, and nothing can really get to them. As an example, Paul Bogey Brighton was on the show before, and he talked about going into haunted places, and where the people that oversaw the haunted places were amazed that things didn't happen around them that happened to people normally. Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess where I'm going with this is through some of the experiences we've had over here, and particularly the one I was referring to last night. You explained this really well a second ago, and that's what made me think of it, because I don't remember a lot from last night, but I do remember, and it's not the first time, but this was more intense, where there was very, what I don't consider them that way, but very dark energies I don't know what you are, but the resonance wasn't telling me anything bad. It wasn't telling me anything good. It was just this kind of 0 point. Here's a face of an angel. Here's a face of a demon. We want to merge with you. And in that moment, I was given a choice, and the discussion became about trust. Are you a trust and belief and faith? And do you really believe that you are
everything you're looking at is a reflection of you. And my answer was yes. And I surrendered, and had these mergings, some with energies that had visuals, and certainly that I could feel from a a feeling standpoint. But they all felt the same. I merged with them, and I think this has got to be something that's occurring to people, not just in the physical day-to-day, where we start to integrate those people and those things that we feel are polarities, or that that we're separate from, but also starting to happen in the non-physical as we expand. It would only make sense that we would present more extremes to ourselves and our personal experience. Have you had any experience with recently, especially with the energies, where you're having to integrate polarities or extremes of people or things, physical or non-physical, that you haven't necessarily been comfortable with before?
Yes, and I also recognize a pattern in myself of protecting myself. But the moment I started to protect myself, before you know it, you start to defend yourself, or attack the thing you think you have to protect yourself from, and
Right.
actually it's the same thing. And the defense comes out of a sort of fear, the protectiveness, because the soul is untouchable. It's so when someone does us harm, and I'm not saying we have to let ourselves be harmed, and sometimes it is good to stand up for the truth, for love, for unity. But before we know it, we become the enemy we fear. And that's what I noticed, and I'm standing in that now, because of course I also experienced the infinity of the spirit, and that the body is just a temporary suit, and I can easily let it go. Of course, I'm still afraid of the pain and the trouble that I can go through, but I surrender to that, like you say, and with that I take the power away from it.
Yeah.
So it can attack me, and it can hurt me, and it can kill me, but it cannot touch my soul.
Yeah.
And my soul is ready for that. It already accepted that. So it can come whenever it comes. So there is not the fear of the separation. And when they attack me, when they kill me, they are only hurting themselves in a way, because I'm just the other them, or the other way around. So that's another approach towards it: the surrender, the trust, the faith. And of course, maybe in the moment itself there will be some doubt for a fraction, but it is ingrained so deep that connectedness with the soul, that I also connected with the people that oppose me.
Yeah.
I can feel what is happening, and that is also sort of sometimes a threat for them and a reason for them to attack. But yeah, that's a sort of a play that is happening, and the force from the soul is growing bigger and bigger. And especially when we connect, and when we give the good example from it, living like that, living in love and in unity. And love, not, I don't mean that as a weak thing, or how can I describe that? Because there's also misunderstanding about love sometimes.
Yeah, that's a good that's a good subject. Let me just put this comment up real quick from Shaz. Thank you for the comment. She says, the very thing I needed was the very thing I feared. Pretty interesting.
Yeah.
The very thing I needed was, and we think that that can be a dimensional experience with something we might have been afraid of. That's actually an opportunity to expand and awaken, or be aware of something, or whatever the case is. But you just made a great comment. You made a great comment that love isn't always what we think it is. You want to explain that a little bit?
Yes.
Because I agree with you. Yeah.
Yes, because sometimes people talk about unconditional love. I made a comment about that today also, that it's easy to say unconditional love, and sometimes people abuse it because they say They want unconditional love, but they only want it for themselves. As soon as the people don't love them and don't do as they want them to do to them, then they say they are not unconditional loving them, and then they separate from them.
Yeah.
So actually, it's not unconditional love, and love is bigger than the terms conditional or unconditional, because that are also opposite polarities. So the unconditional love goes inside as well as outside, and then it is in balance. But when people are not are trying to be good and trying to be helpful and trying to sacrifice themselves towards someone who talks about unconditional love, they forget themselves, and sometimes things get totally out of balance, and they cannot say no to someone who is asking them, who is abusing them, their ignorance at some points. And some people do that. And of course, that is also a lesson they have to learn, and they learn it the best through the experience of losing everything. But yeah.
I think we're getting to a point now, or very close, that where if somebody says to you, I'm not saying in every case, but I think the energy speaks for itself. But if I have to, or somebody says to me or to you or whatever, I love you unconditionally, I think if we have to say it, there's probably a problem. If we have to say it, it's not as powerful as being it. You know what I mean? I mean,
yes,
it has more to do. It has more to do with the old energies, or the old paradigm of I want to be loved. You know what I mean? That type of thing.
Yes.
As opposed to the transformation occurring and the higher awareness and beingness of unconditional love.
Yes.
You know, that's you know, that seems to be the next step. You know, I mean, we came out of this. Few people talked about it. Quite a few people talked about it at the end of the last month, which was about self-value. You know, and then I know Morgan's gotten intel for this month, and I'm sure there'll be others that are doing the same, which is that this month is about true unconditional love for self, and what the ramifications or what the consequences, repercussions of that being that we are illuminating or amplifying whatever our level of illumination is. Okay, we are amplifying a signal outward that is then the physical reality that we all share, certainly the one we share within our own experience. But the exciting thing to me is that if we are leveling up in the aspect of the reality of unconditional love, where we don't have to manipulate, where we don't have to say I love you unconditionally, or we don't participate in those old loops, the obvious consequence of that is going to be an elevated, shared collective reality, collective experience, collective consciousness. So that's exciting to me. That energy would seem to be available now, based on her intel, based on just the reality of what we're all experiencing, even between the lines of the words we speak.
Yes, exactly, because it transcends the words, and then we don't have to say it. And yes, the love for the self, eventually the self is also everyone. And if we love ourselves truly, then we cannot hurt others, because then we realize that we are the love that we are looking for, and then that it is an endless source we can only give from and share from, and then it multiplies by being ourselves and by accepting ourselves as we are, in our own uniqueness as a person on a certain level. And then we can accept the other also. And then acceptance is also a wrong word, of course, because then you're saying there's something that is not to accept. So the language is not capable of expressing that anymore. It's more on an energetic level, and that's why the
I think
the energies is speaking for itself.
Yeah, and I think too that being open.
Yes,
like you said,
transparent.
If you're unconditional love, obviously if we're aligned, or to whatever degree we're aligned with our reality of our true nature, unconditional love, the power of it, and all that, we are not going to hurt anybody. But by the same token, because we're on this really unique journey here where we're coming out of duality, we have to be open to the fact that we could hurt someone through shadow, through unconscious shadow, and through unconscious loops. And so it seems like, and that's what I was talking about earlier with some of the intel that people like Jason Estes and Franco Di Nicola, I think I got the name right, and I love Franco, is that the energy or the presence or the strength of ego and loop has kind of been stalled and stopped. And the only thing that's playing out there is the residual effect of it. As we start to come to terms with our true reality, it doesn't have to be, they don't have to be the influence and power in our lives anymore, because the faucet's been turned off. We just have to turn it off in ourselves.
Yes, and that takes some time, because the loop, it's sort of a spinning wheel, and we can get the information consciously, but materially, physically, it takes some time to change those patterns of survival, of fighting, of borders, of territorial stuff, and surviving. And the best way to survive is together, because then everything is possible. If we take care, if we don't fight each other. And that is a big change, because we have been for 100,000 years living in tribes, fighting each other, taking territory, looking for food and hunger and all kinds of disasters and pains. And that is not necessary with the kind of awareness and consciousness we have now. And the only way to change that is to raise it on a collective level. And the only way is to be open and to be vulnerable and to show ourselves. And sometimes that hurts people, because it confronts them with their inner patterns that don't want to see that out of a sort of a protective way, because they recognize a part of themselves they don't want to see into what we can represent as being open and being transparent, that they think that is not good. And then, but that is just the way it is, and that is how we got to take it. And we are have to be able, I'm able to die for that, because I know I can die, because that's the only way to live through that and to expand on a micro level and on a macro level, on a cosmic level. And that is what's happening now. So that's wonderful.
We've talked a lot about sacred sexual power, and your and some of your experiences. Given the fact that we've been elevating and ramping up, the last few weeks, or really since the last time we talked, with maybe a couple of months, have you had an expansion in your own personal sacred sexual energy? Have you had any particular experiences that you might want to share?
Yes, and I'm also connected towards it. It is, in fact, it is also the energy of chaos, the energy of expansion, the energy of life. So it's hard to control it. But the thing is that in allowing it, giving it room, then it manifests itself in a divine way. So it won't do these things out of a repressed and thinking, because people demonize it a lot, the sexual energy. But it's the first divine, godly energy of creation. So it's a holy experience. And the church and everything try to repress that. So they disconnect the people from the nature that they are. But the nature is our inner force of chaos, the godly force that wants to, and we balance it with our mind and with our heart. But yes, I experience it I observe it, I see it happen, and I allow it, and I talk about it, about my feelings. It's also sometimes hard to say that to a partner, how you feel and what you feel, because sometimes they can take it personal. But the loving of the energy is always taking care of the whole thing. If it's not coming from a frustration and not coming from a repressed emotion, or through a channel that is closed down or cut off at the roots. And you, did you have a
What? No, I asked you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the most beautiful part is when the souls, and I feel that so good with Annette when she is disconnecting, when she is living in fear. That hurts my soul because she feels separation and she gets in anxiety, and she cuts herself off because out of a defensive way. And then, but it's much easier to open her up, her soul back up, and then the energy starts to flow. And that doesn't even have to do with sexuality.
Of course not. Yeah.
It is the energy of life that is happening, and that is streaming, then the energy of trust, the energy of allowance, the energy of let it come like it comes. Like the lady said in the comment, what she feared is what she needed. What we fear is usually an illusion, and what we fear, if we face it, maybe the thing that we fear is still fearful, but when we approach it in a way of trust, then it changes already, because then it doesn't control us, and then it doesn't make our world smaller and more fearful and more dark and more cut off from reality. So we have to face our fears. That's really what we need. And work with them, and don't resist them, don't run from them. And then we get the ecstatic state of love, of total cosmic orgasm, the energy that starts to flow through every cell, through our blood, through our veins, through our hairs, and illuminates everything, and it knows exactly what it wants, life force, because there's a sort of an evolutionary process going on, and it will go on forever and ever, because life is unfolding in all kinds of new dimensions and complexities and realities. And we just have to ride the waves. We don't have to fight the waves we are riding. Let's enjoy the ride, and let's go with the flow, and let us live, and let the others live too, because life is holy. And that is, I think, a good thing. Life is holy, and we are all connected in one field of life. And if we take care of that in a sacred way, then life can flourish, and life will take care of us. Yeah.
I'm digging it. Far out. Love the explanation. Have you finished your second book?
Yeah, I finished it, but maybe someone can help me with managing it.
What do you mean? Publishing it?
I also have now some talks in a spiritual cafe in Arnhem. So I get invitations from all kinds of people to do things, but it has to be managed in a proper way, because with time and everything, it doesn't really work on a linear base, because I don't experience in that way. And then when I'm in a creative wave, things start to manifest itself, and then I forget the practical things.
That's it.
And Annette is helping me a lot, of course, but it would be nice to have someone who brings structure in it. And what I want for that is that to be a woman, so I can give birth to the creativity towards a woman who can manifest it in the world in a cooperation. So but that's all. It's already flowing in that way, so things will work out fine. Yes.
All right. So where can we find the two books? Though they on Amazon?
Yeah, the Global Awakening, the Master of Destruction, is on Amazon. It's also in an ebook, and maybe Annette can put on the link below it. And Global Awakening 2, it's ready. So I've got to the chapters, put them a bit together. And I think it's very good.
So they're almost ready. I mean, it's almost ready. The second one.
Yeah, it is ready, but I still writing new stuff. It's also ready for part 3. So, and it's nice to keep it up the production with the manifesting in the world. Otherwise, it's going into 3 tracks.
Yeah.
Also, a book is coming out about my brother that I wrote once. It's translated in English. It's about coaching. He's an Olympic swim coach in Australia now, and yeah, that's also nice. And it also, I wrote that in 2010, I think. It's also very spiritual, and it also I recognized in that the parts of how to can use it practically in life. So that's also nice. But also with that book, of course, I'm helped with that. But if I would do that myself, talking with the people that put it on the market and everything, then it wouldn't get very far.
Yeah.
So I need help in that, and if anyone feel called, then it's always nice to connect with it. Then.
Very cool. Anybody? Anybody's that resonates with anyone? Give Henk a call or reach out on Messenger, and anyone.
Yes, but Messenger, it's all. I don't see all the messages.
Oh, you don't.
Yeah, because
how should they contact you?
The best way is to contact Annette.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you can find her if you see my partner on the internet, and then it goes in the good direction. Or they can contact Margot, the one I do the mushroom ceremonies with. We have a mushroom ceremony the 17th of August. And from the Bliss Biz, that I'm doing with Enid Gommers, there's also a nice link. Maybe I can put it under the clip here.
Put all the links. Put all the links there in the contact information.
Yes.
And I will. We're in somewhat of an energetic transition at the moment.
Yeah, I feel it. I feel good energy of you.
So as soon as we get settled, then we'll reach out to you, and I won't give you 1 hour's notice. We'll schedule something in advance, okay?
But I'm ready always. So.
Okay. All right, brother. Love you.
Okay. Thank you, Todd. Nice talking to you.
You take care.
Looking great. Yeah, I will. Okay.